Well, welcome everybody to another session of Tech Time. Appreciate you joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about some filter dryers and some reasons why they're very important inside our heat pumps, especially when repairing or replacing a part. Got any questions? Here's the information for you to send us an email or drop us a phone call to tech support, and we'll gladly help you out. Today, I'm Jim Strandlund, part of the technical services team, and my contact information is there. If you've got anything you'd like to talk about or something you'd like me to discuss more in a future Tech Time, drop me a note. We're sponsored by Intertech University and Intertech Energy and Technology. Remember, all of these Tech Times and all of our trainings are hosted on our Intertech University website and YouTube channels, so you can always watch these at any other time if you so like to. Now, in our geothermal heat pumps, we have some very intricate valves and components that are sensitive to being clogged from waxes, from soot and solder joints and solder materials, if they're not properly taken care of during the process of replacement. So also, a lot of our newer heat pumps today, our modern ones, are incorporating some more fancier electronic expansion valves or EXVs, so more sensitive to repair and replacement. And as the future of our products keep going, we're going to see more and more of this being used as we're gaining higher energy efficiencies with our products. We all know that this valve is probably one of the hardest ones to change on a heat pump. The reversing valve can be very tough to get taken apart and replaced. I always recommend wrapping each individual tube with a rag and try to maybe solder one at a time and make sure you don't overheat this valve and create more problems down the road. So here we enter in the discussion of the importance of a filter dryer. We all know that the filter dryer collects soldering junk and parts and materials and moisture, and it's a very important part. What I want people to think about is which direction of flow should we be restarting the heat pump after we've replaced a part, after we've replaced a filter dryer. We want to look at sending the refrigerant through the filter dryer maybe before it can get to an expansion valve, if possible. It's not always possible with some of the products, but I want you guys to think about how the refrigerant circuitry is in the heat pump, and after you start it, I don't care if it's in winter, if it needs to be started in cooling first, let's do it. That was typically what we were told for many years, to start everything in cooling, to catch any particulates, go through the filter dryer before it reached the expansion valve. Now, today's heat pumps are getting more sophisticated and more complicated. So inside our manuals, a lot of our manuals have these kind of piping diagrams. So as the technician is looking at or changing the part, it's helped them to determine, I maybe need to run this in cooling, I maybe need to run this in heating first. And with our combo units, there may have to go through the hydronic section first. I'm not going to tell you in every single heat pump which way to go, but I want you to be able to tell your technicians to think, follow the refrigeration tubing, look at the individual heat pump, and find out the most appropriate way to try to run the refrigerant startup through the filter dryers before it gets to the expansion valves or the EXVs. Now, a little bit more difficult when you're starting to deal with a split system, right? Because of filter dryers in between two TXVs. And so which way should we run it through? Well, again, I'd like to make sure if we're going through the expansion valve to the bypass part of it and start it up that way, so the refrigerant will go through the filter dryer before it hits the other mode, the expansion valve. So try to tell the guys what's the most detrimental, least detrimental, best way to protect the other internal parts in the heat pump by sending the refrigerant through the dryer as much as possible in the beginning. Now, the Other important thing is the sophistication of, this is a diagram of our WV units. As you can see, there's a lot more components inside of there, and a little more thinking needs to be done to figure out which way to run stuff. Again, the electronic expansion valve is in there, and so let's try to make sure and run the refrigerant through the filter dryer before it gets there. As we develop and update our manuals, we'll start seeing more diagrams like this to make it easier on the job site. Now, it's always been told that we should try to cut each individual part out. Soldering, unsweating them creates more soot, creates more wax materials from the burning oil, etc. It's not always possible, I understand that. But I also encourage you to use the proper tool. The blowtorch obviously isn't the right tool to use when unsoldering a part. But some of the parts we get back at Intertech for inspection looks like somebody used a blowtorch the way they're all burnt up. So use the proper tools and the proper methods. Run some, I think one of the more important things if you're trying to unsolder something that people don't do is, you know what, run the nitrogen through there as well to help eliminate as much of the bad contaminants as you can. So nitrogen is a very important part, whether we're resoldering or unsoldering. If you have to unsolder, it is what I prefer that you guys do. So remember, cut out like the expansion valves, the filter dryers to create less contaminants when you're replacing a part, which helps eliminate future callbacks or future repair problems. Some of the things I want you guys to remember when I'm dealing with this stuff here is use those proper tools, use your proper procedures when replacing any of the refrigerant components in the units or systems. Nitrogen, most important part, usage is a must when performing your surgery in these geothermal units. Replacing the filter dryer when any soldering is being done to the unit, whether you're fixing a leak, replacing a part, period, change the filter dryer. Cheap insurance prevents you having to go back. And determine the proper starting of mode helps minimize any other future contamination, and try to direct the refrigerant to go through the filter dryer first if possible. Have your techs, have you guys pay attention and follow through and look and see which way the refrigerant flow is and try to get it to go through the filter dryer as soon as possible. So pay attention, look at the best startup mode. Every Intertech belt unit may have a different location of the filter dryer, so starting and cooling may not always be the appropriate method, but take a look at each individual unit and figure it out, and let's try to make these things last longer. As we know, components fail, parts break, but let's see if we can eliminate us having those callbacks or repair problems and keep our customers happy. So again, thank you for attending today. This is your Intertech's technical service member team. Kind of nice to put a face to the phone calls if you make. We're always available. And thanks for attending today. And guys, have a wonderful day and do the best job that you can on repairs and take care of your customers. So thanks again for watching us today.